Pole position 1.6 seconds better than the lap record jointly held by Peter Brock and Kevin Bartlett is Charlie O'Brien, who won the race last year and qualified at exactly the same time, 1:17.3 in his Commodore. And surprising, that's Bob Morris in the Re-Car Commodore, out of his Falcon for today. And in that car, he practiced in both of the Re-Car cars, 0.2 of a second slower, so his best time, 1:18, 0.2 slower than he was in the other car. But that's nothing. So he's up there with Charlie O'Brien, and the surprise on the front row of the grid, the Army car that first appeared at Bathurst, this only the second race for 15-year veteran, 40-year-old Bob Muir in a production touring car, a 1:18.8 in the Falcon that he really got going. 10 to go, Colin Bond in the Capri, who was 3.3 seconds under the class record, and they're away, 95 laps. In this race will take just over the 2 hours. A great start by Johnson, surging up beside Charlie O'Brien, quicker away than Bob Muir, who'll slot into third. Bobby Morris will be fourth. So a great start from the second row of the grid by Dick Johnson, who's in the lead from Charlie O'Brien. There's the field streaming away. You saw Bond in the Masterton Capri. 32 cars in all, and a very strong field. All classes represented. That Gemini, one of only 2 cars in the 1600cc class. The other one being Terry Finnegan at least, and John Donnelly in the Alpha. That's the other car, the Alpha Sud.
There's Dick Johnson. Charlie O'Brien right on his tail now as they head up the fast back straight to Goodyear Corner. O'Brien ranges up on the outside just to let Johnson know he's there, but Johnson's got the corner well covered as they come into the S's for the third time. Back to third gear, 140 kilometres an hour, a flying wedge of these 3 motor cars.
Johnson saying yesterday, if you don't get the start of the S's right, you really will be handicapped all the way onto the straight and subsequently down the straight. I don't know that he got the entry there quite as tight as he'd have liked. And you can see the pressure being put on him by O'Brien and in behind him by Bob Morris. 4 cars in major contention in the lead Falcon, then the 2 Commodores, then the 2 Falcons following of Bob Muir and Murray Carter.
A slipstreaming duel down the straight there on the first lap as Johnson tried to shake the Commodores from his slipstream, couldn't do it as he pulled from the inside, therefore a tighter entry into the Dunlop corner.
And Murray Carter under Bob Muir to take 4th. Real thrust there from Bob Morris though, and he's into second place, but will O'Brien let him have it? Well, this is going to be fascinating. Let's watch.
O'Brien edges to the lead there in the braking area as they go down into a Sander corner. And it's O'Brien who's got it covered. Morris back into third position again. 93 laps remaining in this race, and these drivers are driving at sprint speeds instead of conserving their rubber, which is a critical factor on this very abrasive circuit.
In the line behind the leading wedge is car 8, Gary Wilmington, another Falcon. Then number 77, the Peter Williamson Celica, being driven on this occasion by Mike Quinn.
Peter Williamson, in fact, playing a waiting game at a Sydney hospital at the moment as he waits for his wife Cheryl to deliver their child. But there in the lead, Dick Johnson, keeping a close watch for rocks on the Surfers Paradise circuit, as Charlie O'Brien tries for the inside run that time, pulling out of the slipstream early, and now matching neck for neck the big Johnson 5.7 litre Ford, which just has the edge as they go down into Dunlop Ridge with O'Brien on the inside, clipping the back of clipping the back of Dick Johnson's car there. And Bob Morris taking advantage of that melee between the first 2 cars to pull up on the inside again. O'Brien blocking the corner, as you can see.
And we were talking earlier to Charlie O'Brien with regard to Dick Johnson, at least, as to how he's going to run this race, and of course his problems at Bathurst.
Well, basically, the car's been good in 7 races, which lacks a few finishing touches, but basically the car's a good car. The engine we built in the last couple of weeks, it hasn't been dynoed or anything, but it feels okay. I think the car is capable of doing, whatever we want of it, really, because everything seems to work pretty well, the brakes and everything like that. It's a good car. I think we owe it to a lot of people to win this, and I'd like to continue on winning, really, because that's the name of the game.
With an engine that he'd been using, it was a Joe Moore engine, one of the engines which had been lent to him by Joe Moore, a true sportsman. But last night he changed to the engine which he used in practice at Bathurst. So Dick Johnson now using the Joe Moore car, but with a Dick Johnson engine in it. Oh, that's so close there. Charlie O'Brien really challenges. Now Bob Morris coming up on the outside, incapable of getting through as Charlie O'Brien just edges away, going down to a Sander corner.
Quite a number of borrowed cars in this race, first and third in fact being driven by people other than their owners. Bobby Morris in the Recar Commodore because his Falcon couldn't have the work done on it in time to come up here, and you see there O'Brien very nearly under Johnson, but then leaving himself a little bit open and giving Bob Morris a real entree to get up alongside him. And the other borrowed car is, of course, this lead car, so sportingly lent by Joe Moore and prepared and run in the race absolutely at no cost to him in terms of wear and tear on the car by Dickie Johnson.
Morris concerned earlier this morning that the tyres of his car were not up to the standard which he normally would like. In fact, the front suspension of the car also just a little bit suspect. And he said that he did not think that he could match the pace of these two leading cars, which he expected to try and sprint the opening laps. But Morris doing a wonderful job there, holding on to the two, although even now you can see just a small lead opening as Johnson and O'Brien really push their motor cars along. O'Brien now going for the outside run up towards a Sander corner. There's no way he can hold it out through a Sander there, but he's let Johnson know that he's well and truly prepared to mix it.
Johnson enjoyed keeping him out there, and there's Bob Morris right up on the curbing as he tried to go under O'Brien. So a little bit ragged there, a little bit offline by Morris, but Johnson was delighted to have O'Brien outside him, just going fast enough not to let him by, but not to force him back immediately, and let him, if he was silly enough, be sucked into trying to run around the outside. And at that stage, Dick would have hoped that he'd in fact run wide off the track.
And with full tanks of petrol, these cars are lapping at 1 minute 19 seconds. That's very near pole qualifying time. Certainly a faster pace than you would expect to see at this early stage of such a long distance race held in such hot conditions. 33 degrees Celsius the track temperature, or rather the ambient temperature out there. Track temperature's getting up near 50 degrees Celsius.
O'Brien getting a great tow down the straight there, saving fuel, but probably under these conditions getting the engine a little bit hot. And in fact, earlier we were talking to him about race tactics and tyre wear, particularly in hot conditions.
Well, the race plan, our race plan for the event will be naturally to get out there and go as fast as possible, but Dick is going to be a hard person to beat. The surface raceway certainly favours the Falcons more than Commodores because they've got quite a big power advantage over the Commodores, and it's going to be difficult to keep ahead of the Falcon, but we'll be there and we'll be trying super hard. The tyre wear hasn't been promising throughout the week. It's been threading tyres, ripping new tyres apart within 5 laps, and one only hopes that when all the other vehicles are going to be later, it's going to make it a lot better.
Charlie O'Brien doing a great job in this race that he won last year, his first win in a major long-distance race. And you can see the enormous pressure he's putting on Johnson, and in turn the enormous pressure being put on him by Bob Morris.
Smaller cars already being lapped, 90 laps to go.
Look at this 3-litre V6 Capri leading its class with the master Colin Bond at the wheel of number 31 and chasing Ron Wanless in the 5-litre V8 Commodore. Under the bridge, there he goes. Just to the right is Wanless. There he is. And watch around the back of the circuit what Bond can do. Minus 2 litres in capacity and power underneath him, or at least lapping one of the other cars, and out in hot pursuit. He's been giving Wanless all sorts of trouble around the tight part of the track. And he's got Peter Williamson, Salika, number 77, being driven by Quinn and leading the 2-litre class not far behind him.
In fact, only 2 seconds behind, and right behind Quinn is Stephen Masterton in the other 3-litre Capri. So a huge battle going on between the under 3-litre cars. Colin Bond there, then less than 2 seconds back to Mike Quinn, and right behind Quinn comes Masterton.
We look looking at 6th, 7th and 8th places and further back in this bunch of cars.
Bond is fairly happy, confident, hopeful at least, that he may win this race on the basis of tyre wear, and certainly the tyre wear will be bad at this circuit today because of the pace which the lead drivers are undertaking.
And if Bond's doing a good job with 3 litres, have a look at Quinn behind him in the Celica, just there at the edge of screen in 77 in the 2-litre Celica, because that's the 5-litre Commodore not far in front of them. And then in behind Quinn is Masterton in the other Capri, and going underneath the 1.6-litre or 1.5-litre Alpha Sud, running in the 1.6-litre class.
Quinn ran into problems during practice there as Masterton comes up on the outside, challenging him under brakes. That's a very foolish manoeuvre to make on such a car as that Toyota Celica. And in fact, the Celica holds him out down the back straight. As I was saying, Quinn had problems during practice. He had a hairline crack in his head, and last night had to weld the cylinder head. And he's hopeful that that weld, which he did himself because he couldn't get the welder away from the party he was attending last night, he's hopeful that that weld will hold in today's long-distance event. Mike Quinn there, holding out Stephen Masterton.
Stephen Masterton doing a great job. A young driver who in the last couple of years, with a lot of dedication and I think in fairness not an enormous amount of natural talent, but he has honed himself into a very good driver indeed. Won his class at this race last year and has been a very quick and steady driver in the 3-litre V6 Capri, and will next year hopefully be moving up to a 5-litre car. Mike Quinn, very experienced, 28 years old, had a couple of very hard seasons in Formula Ford 2000s in England, ran Formula Ford here, now has returned here and has supported Peter Williamson beautifully, running at one stage the Toyota Corolla Levin, which he ran very fast indeed, and on numerous occasions more recently running as second driver to Williamson in the Celica.
Mike Quinn and Stephen Masterton both dispatching the other 2-litre and 3-litre cars in the event, in fact lapping them already, which gives some idea of just how fast these quickest cars in the class really are.
Michael Quinn, we were talking to him earlier this weekend about the difference between the way he drives the Celica and the man that owns it and drives it so well far more frequently, Peter Williamson.
Peter sets the car up himself. He set it up for his particular style of driving. Mine, I think, perhaps is a little bit smoother than Peter's. But I think the car will be pretty close to the times that he did last year. I hope, anyway. I would hope that I'm reasonably competitive with it. I drove it at South Australia for the first round of the Manufacturers' Championship, and we equalled Peter's times over there, and so I'm pretty happy with that, and I think we'll be all right this weekend.
Very experienced driver for his 28 years, and a quick one too. Came back for a Hardy photo about 3 years ago, Mike Quinn, and he had achieved most of his best results in England and wasn't well known here, but by gee, he's really enhanced his reputation since he's been back. Coming up now to start their 14th lap with Charlie O'Brien, the new race leader, in car number 10, the car that took pole position at 1:17.3, and that was the identical time to the 10th of the second that Charlie took pole position with last year, and now has gone through into the lead over Dick Johnson, slipping back to second place in car 17. Third place still held by Bob Morris in car number 5. That's the gap back to Johnson. And then, not far behind him, you'll see Morris come into view there, with brakes on as they go up to his sander, the tight fast left-hand corner at least. It's a top gear corner with quite a lot of throttle, actually. This is a slow one, though, Goodyear. Second gear initially. Some prefer third, though. Second gear producing a little bit too much wheel spin and too much sliding, a bit hard on tyres. Here's the 3 leaders. Johnson sliding wildly there, and if he does that too much, he will knock the tyres around, or the alternative explanation is that he has already, and that the tyres have gone off. We'd better watch him. Have a look at it again. Look at him starting to come back on lock now as he feels the car going. There he goes. See the wheel come round. And a big oversteer slide there to Dickie Johnson. And there we see him under the Dunlop Bridge, and I think his tyres have gone off because the car was starting to look a bit skatey under the bridge there, and Morris is getting closer. And this is where the race tactics come into it. And, of course, part of race tactics is the activities down in the pits, where at the moment we have John Smales.
Lying in 4th place in the event, Victorian veteran Murray Carter is already in the pits. He has a fuel leak problem. Mechanics dressed in fireproof overalls because it is dangerous dealing with fuel are looking now to try to find out what's wrong. They've managed just in the last half a minute to stem the flow of fuel, but they don't know whether they can send the motor car out again because the crack may open up again. They cannot find it at this stage.
Fuel leaks and the potential of fire, the thing drivers and pit crews fear most. Here's Johnson again, and that car tending to slide, and Johnson having to treat it very gingerly indeed. Morris getting closer to him, Johnson losing a bit of contact with Charlie O'Brien. Look at Morris now, ready to go through, as without doubt Johnson's tyres have gone off, but he said yesterday that the thing he likes about the Dunlop 021 tyres that he's using in the race is that if they do go off, you can leave them for a couple of laps and they will recover. Whereas some of the other race tyres, he said, once they go off, they are absolutely gone. So now we've got Bob Morris up into 2nd place, Johnson slipping back to 3rd, and let's see. Oh, geez, lost a lot of ground immediately to Bob Morris, and he's slow out of there. And whether he's going to perhaps even make a pit stop in a moment, we'll have to wait and see. But Johnson suddenly is losing a lot of ground to the leading pair. Now the 2 Commodores of Charlie O'Brien in car number 10 and Bob Morris in 2nd place in car number 5. This is Johnson, the man who was put out of the Hardy-Feroda. There he is stopping. Johnson, the man for whom a national appeal raised some $78,000 after his accident at Bathurst. He went down and had lunch last week, but he's got real trouble. Had lunch last week with Edsel Ford down in Melbourne, and he said, how do you want your $37,000 that the Ford Motor Company had pledged? And he said, well, I need a new body shell, and so they're giving him a new body shell plus the money in balance. But here he is, into the pits, even earlier than he was in the Hardy-Feroda, and John Smales will be there to tell us what the problem is. Bad luck for Dick Johnson, so hopeful of honouring the commitment of his fans, and he'll be doing it next year, running all the Touring Car Championship rounds in all the states so that the fans that gave him money can contribute. And now down to John Smales.
Johnson's in the pits. Up goes the back wheel. They're using a normal jack, a pneumatic jack, rather than the air jacks, which is much slower. 1 churn of fuel going in. Dick, what's the problem with the car?
Well, actually, I think it's blown a head gasket because there's something that's been used in this car that we haven't got in our car that is giving us this problem, because it's the same problem we had yesterday.
What about the rear tyre?
No, the rear tyre, I think somebody spilled a bit of oil under the bridge and I thought it was going flat, but it wasn't.
You must be very disappointed.
It's only the bloody beginning, isn't it?
You're going to keep trying?
Well, you don't give up once. I'm not stopping till I do everything the way I want to do it.
Back on your wheels, Dick.
Well, that's the picture of an unhappy man taking off his driving gloves at this stage and reaching for his helmet. So the hoped-for comeback and perhaps victory here in the last round of the Manufacturers' Championship by Dick Johnson, the 37-year-old Queenslander who was so cruelly put out at the Hardy-Feroda. Here we see Terry Finnegan leading the 1600cc class and being passed by one of the 5-litre V8s in this Gemini number 74. He's in fact a specialist single-seater driver, but used to run a Brabham. But driving his Holden Gemini and leading the 1600 class quite convincingly from car 64, an Alfa Romeo Alfa Sud 1.5 litre entered by Ray Gulson, but being driven by Chris Harrigan. Sorry, that's in 3rd place. Paul Jones in car 64 is in 2nd place in that class. So Chris Harrigan in an escort, actually, in third place in the 1.6 litre class. But Finnegan doing a good job, because often drivers don't make a very smooth transfer from single-seaters to touring cars, but Finnegan in this case has slotted the car up into the lead in the class on lap 17. Behind him, or above him in the 2 litre class, still being led by the Peter Williamson Toyota Celica, Michael Quinn, the driver of car 77, leading that class from the class winner at the Hardy Ferodo, Graham Bailey in the older Toyota Celica and the former Peter Williamson car, number 51, and then car 46, Bob Holden, driving a 2 litre Escort, running third in that class. The 3 litre class being led by Colin Bond, being followed in second place by his teammate Stephen Masterton in 32, Bond in car 31, both of them V6 Capris, and both of them heading Barry Seaton in the... And there's Masterton, and with a flat right rear tyre, running off the track and in real trouble now, was running second in the class and trying desperately to look after the rim and get the car back to the pits. Well, I think he thinks that there might be a shorter way back to the pits, but there's all sorts of ditches around this circuit that could lead him into trouble. No, oh, look at him in trouble there. The car won't steer, but running back to the pits, trying to follow the vague direction of the track now onto it, heading to John Snail's territory in just a moment, so that the man slotting himself up into second in the class now will be the Barry Seaton V6 Capri, being driven for its first stint by Seaton's regular co-driver, Don Smith. That's car 55, will now be second in class. So here's the Masterton Capri. Real drama. Bad luck for them. They had a weeping head gasket at Bathurst, and after qualifying fastest in class and looking good for very respectable outright placing, they had all sorts of overheating problems all day. Look at the beaut bit of machinery. You move it in, and in one go, it does front and rear on one side. And they can, in fact, in a real rush, do a complete 4-wheel change in about 25 seconds.
The rear right-hand tyre of Steve Masterton's car shredded. He's been hit in the door as well by Mike Quinn. They've changed the tyre now. He's been in for 25 seconds. Now, and only now, are they putting a new churn of fuel in the motor car and changing the rest of the tyres as well. This new jacking technique, which the Masterton team had worked out, in which the car rises on 4 jacks simultaneously, was supposed to allow them to make the change in just 30 seconds, but they've been thrown askew by this pit stop, which was far earlier than anticipated, caused by the prank. Stephen, what happened out there?
Oh, a slower car got in my way through the corner and apparently hit the back of my car and put me out of the way.
57 seconds for Stephen Masterton in the pits, and that's a pity for him.
Well, you can see there the urgency of the situation as Stephen Masterton cut that interview nice and short. But back out onto the track again. Now will have slipped well back in the class. But the young boy's got quite a lot of ability, and it's quite a long race that'll run 2 odd hours, 95 laps in all, which is 304 kilometres. And he still has the chance and the speed to work his way back to a good placing in the class.
And here's what caused Stephen Masterton's problem. The rim, completely torn away, buckled into the tyre, incapable of staying on it at all. He's been hit hard, very hard indeed, and he's lost almost a lap on the track, which leaves Colin Bond now, the man out chasing Michael Quinn. In the pits, unscheduled one early. Colin Bond, what's wrong?
No, it was just a little bit of steam coming out from under the bonnet and just lost a little bit of horsepower, so I decided to stop early and see what the problem is.
Colin Bond's almost away. They've got the jack down, but they're still under the bonnet. Colin, a disappointment for you.
Start it? No, just want to start it. Red?
Putting more and more water under the bonnet of the motor car, trying to cool it down. Colin, has it been overheating?
No, it hasn't actually. The water temperature's been fine. It's just that it started to miss on that last lap. I'm just curious what's wrong with it.
Right, bonnet's down. He's been in the pits more than a minute. Bond says there's something wrong. He's told the pit crew to raise the bonnet again and to listen to the engine when he starts it. Certainly it's got a miss. They say discussions between pit Manager and Colin Bond now, and he's turned it off, and that's the end of Colin Bond's race by the looks of it. He's been told to take it out slowly, see what's wrong with the motor car and bring it back again. Is that the verdict?
I think the engine's had it. We're going to give it one lap just to see how it goes, but I think it's had it.
The third of 3 leaders that we've had in the race so far now is Bob Morris in car number 5, the Commodore, that he borrowed for today, but O'Brien nearly under him there, certainly trying to put a threat on him. And then sweeping through the fast back section of the circuit go the leading Commodores. Charlie O'Brien has led the race. Dick Johnson led the race, but is now out of it. And now it's Bob Morris, and looking very good too in the Recar Commodore. He's driven Commodores before, of course, because he drove earlier this year for the Craven Mail team, backing up Alan Grice in a Commodore there before they split. And then he got back to Falcon for Bathurst. But we were talking to Bob earlier about the differences between the 2 cars that he's driven in touring car racing. His regular Falcon.
Well, the differences between the Holden Commodore and the Ford Falcon are only minor, in fact, even though they're totally different cars. They're both V8 cars, they both have 4-speed transmissions, but the difference between the Falcon and the Holden, the Falcon has a little bit more torque, a little bit more power, and pulls a little better out of the slower corners. The Holden is possibly a little bit better under brakes. It's a slightly lighter car, so it's a little more nimble. Although both cars, you know, wash up fairly much the same, and they're both very competitive. It's just a matter of how the guy drives the cars and how the team decides to run the race. And team tactics are probably going to play a very important part in this race here today.
Well, you saw there at very high speed the sweeping speed of the Commodore, but the smoothness of Bob Morris. He really is a remarkably smooth and proficient driver, 31 years old, and by sitting back just a little in the opening stages, he looks to have looked after his car well. By comparison, Dick Johnson was right into it from the start and has run into problems, and now he's down in the pits with John Smales.
And for the second time in a month, a dour expression on the face of Dick Johnson as he fails to finish yet another important race. Dick, it must be a great disappointment to you.
Oh, I'm getting used to him now. But once we get our car together, I think things will be a bit better.
In retrospect, do you think it was wrong of you to try and rush your preparation of your car for this meeting?
I know it was, for sure, but we do these things.
Why did you do it?
Well, there's a lot of people out there that have supported us. I'd just like to say thanks to them by winning a race one day.
You had more than $78,000 contributed to you after your hitting the rock incident at Bathurst. What will you build next year?
We'll build the best Falcon I've ever seen. Even better than the last one.
Unbelievably, the second place, Charlie O'Brien now into the pits in car number 10. And you can see by the slow pace that he's in real trouble. So, Johnson and O'Brien, the 2 early race leaders, now both in the pits in trouble, leaving Bob Morris firmly ensconced in first place in car 5.
Second step by as Charlie O'Brien goes for 4 new tyres. Only 33 laps completed. That's far less than he'd expected to do on the tyres. He probably is not getting the tyre where he expected because of the immense pace of the race. 25 seconds gone. It's going to be a quick one because they are putting the wheels together pretty quickly indeed. Charlie, the pace is very high out there.
Yeah, his tyres are not standing up. The Bridgestone certainly seemed to be the better choice today, but I'll see how we go the last half.
40 seconds gone. Fuel being spilled everywhere. There goes the windscreen being cleaned. Pit manager Leo Gagan standing at the front of the car. 50 seconds gone. Gagan holds us back. 2 jacks out. 1 jack giving difficulty on the front right. It's down. Oh, frustration. They cannot get the jacks out of the motor car. One of the reasons why the Steve Masterton situation is so good. Gagan says, get the car turned around. It's lost 15 seconds by not being able to get its jacks out and went out in 1 minute, 13 seconds.
Not a very slick pit stop at all for Charlie O'Brien, and very bad luck for the 25-year-old Queenslander, who in fact lives only a few hundred metres from here. He says he could run home in about 3 minutes. He won the race last year, qualified fastest this year, led it early on, but the tremendous temperature here today, about 33 degrees ambient temperature, an enormous heat soak in the black bitumen, making track temperatures up around 50 degrees and taking enormous toll of tyres.
And that's the evidence of the incredible pace of this compact Tennis 300. Charlie O'Brien's right rear tyre, the rubber just completely shredding off.
Race leader Bob Morris in car number 5 has completed 37 laps. He's on his 38th, but just may be in trouble, as was earlier in the race Dick Johnson and Charlie O'Brien. He's been signalling frantically to his pits that he's gone by. This time it's a gesticulation of I don't know what's gone wrong, but he's not travelling too quickly as he goes under the Dunlop Bridge again. And there in the pits is the man that until he pulled in just then was running third. What incredible tyre wear being experienced by the leading cars. This sponsored by the Army and by Hurley Burley, a new entertainment area at Burley Heads. Bob Muir, the man who did so well, this only his second drive in a production touring car in 15 years of motor racing, and he slotted it up into third place on the grid, pushing Dick Johnson back onto the second row. But now, like everybody, has suffered with tyre problems.
Okay, because of the problem of tyres, now even Bob Muir in the Army car is in the pits. Only for a precautionary look. His pit crew has had a look at the tyres and decided they're all right. But Muir is starting to worry about the general condition of the motor car. Now they're under the bonnet. He's heard noises in the back seat, so one of his mechanics has been in there as well. The nerves of the race are starting to show. Muir probably didn't need this pit stop, but he just kept hearing noises, and away he goes.
Well, with Bob Muir going out, formerly in third place, but now some way back in the field, the race situation really is quite up in the air. We've got the two Recar Commodores from Victoria in first and second place. Here we see them. Bob Morris in car 5 leads the race. We see him there going down to Winfield Corner. He's followed up very well by Ron Wanless, the Queenslander, in second place in car number 6, the car that Morris qualified fastest of the two Commodores from this team. Wanless was some way off Morris's pace, about 3 odd seconds, but nevertheless is in second place at this stage. Third place now being held by Barry Seaton's V6 3-litre Capri. Fourth place, incredibly, being held by Mike Quinn in the Toyota Celica. Once I'd never have dreamt that a 2 or a 3-litre car could win one of these Enduros, but under the extremely hot temperatures here at Surfers Paradise today, and every one of the leading cars now, bar the 2 that are still out there in first and second, running into tyre problems, it could be that green and red Celica there, being followed by Barry Seaton's Capri, so the Celica now is in third place outright, has only got to see troubles to the 2 leading Commodores and will lead the race.
And the Army team has troubles. Bob Muir, what's the problem?
Just lost oil pressure.
Come on, kill it. He's been told to kill the engine. He's just lost oil pressure. Bob, that's a disappointment.
Yes, but it went a lot further than the last time, Tom.
You're developing the car for next year, of course.
Yes, we are. And we simply have gone further than we did before. I'm happy. I mean, it's a damn shame, but, well, there's always another day. Well, we still might get it fixed.
Bob Muir stopped in this race as well. That's 3 Falcons down, 2 remaining in the event.
Remarkable situation here where the former race leader, Charlie O'Brien in car 10, is now running around in 4th place, just having got past Michael Quinn's Toyota Celica number 77. So he's not making an enormous amount of headway. Round the back part, tight part of the circuit, where under these hot conditions they really do have to be pretty gentle with the car. The Celica there trying to make ground. Have a look at it. Quinn, a very smooth, hard driver of what is a very nice little car. Look at the ground it's made on the Commodore number 10. And the situation through the leading cars is that still Bob Morris leads in car 5. And this is at the 46th lap. In second place is Ron Wanless, car 6. Then Barry Seaton in the 3-litre Capri 55. It was Michael Quinn in 4th in 77, but he's now been overtaken, despite the pit stop, by Charlie O'Brien there in car number 10, by O'Brien, who's gone from 5th therefore to 4th, pushing Quinn back to 5th. Then in 6th place, behind that lot, in car number 51, is the 2-litre class winning car from Bathurst, Graham Bailey in the older Toyota Celica.
Some 20 laps earlier than expected, race leader Bob Morris heads for the pits. He needs 2 tyres only on the left-hand side of the motor car. Look at that rubber that's just come off the back of the car. The tyre is completely shredded. Bob, your rear tyre was totally shredded.
Was it?
Yeah. How does it feel?
Well, it's a bit slippery out there. I didn't know whether it was totally the tyres or partly the circuit, but it is very slippery.
Can you, with new tyres, go out and sustain the same pace?
I can't see why not. The car was beautiful at the start. We had to push him to get away from Charlie O'Brien. But, you know, we're right.
Okay, Bob Morris almost about to drop the rear tyre. The rear side of the motor car about to come down. He's had 40 seconds in the pits to date. And the rear of the car still in the air. Morris now getting very impatient to leave. Oh, this is a long one, 50 seconds. He's down and he's away in 51 seconds.
Car 55, 3-litre V6 Capri, now lies in second place outright. Quite incredible, and being driven not by the old maestro Barry Seaton, who turned 44 at the Hardy Frodo, but by his very competent co-driver, Don Smith. Very real potential, as you can see when a 3-litre car with less than half race distance covered is lying second outright for a small capacity class vehicle to win the race. Perhaps the Seaton-Smith Capri, number 55, or the Mike Quinn, Peter Williamson Toyota Celica, number 77. Sweeps there under the bridge. Bo Seaton, a real character, 44 years old, and has been racing all classes of car for a very long time. Won the Hardy Frodo back in 1965, long before it was called the Hardy Frodo, in fact. Has been upside down in cars on 7 different occasions and says he's now too old to give up racing. Don Smith, not much younger, doesn't race regularly these days, and one wonders how well he can nurse the car and how sensitive he can be of its tyres and the hot conditions with irregular racing. But he's doing a grand job at the moment because he's had to contend with Colin Bond, Steve Masterton in similar V6 Capris, with Mike Quinn in the very quick 2-litre Toyota Celica, and he's come out on top at this stage of them all, not only leading the 3-litre class, but running second outright. Only very briefly was Ron Wanless the race leader in car number 6, because here he comes, the last of the big cars, to call into the pits for a tyre stop. The tyres absolutely shredding, and it wouldn't be funny to say that the pits literally might run out of tyres today.
The Recar team taking all the precautions in the world. The new race leader, Ron Wanless, now in the pits again to take 2 left-hand tyres, probably only as a precautionary measure, certainly, but the tyres, if they're anything like Bob Morris's, must be getting right down now. There goes the front left. It is torn to pieces on one side, not as bad as Morris's, but nonetheless not in good condition at all. This probably means if the paces continue at this rate, that Wanless and Morris will both need another stop before the end of the event. The time ticking away again, 40 seconds gone. The front's down. Now the problem's with the rear on this car. 45 seconds. Jack doesn't want to come out. Wanless, eyes staring straight ahead. His concentration's on the track. 55 seconds, and Ron Wanless is away. There's the front tyre of the car. That's what he has to steer with. Looking at the rubber of the front tyre just shredding off. Now, Bob Morris's was twice as bad as that, which put him at some sort of a risk as he was trying to get round the Surfers Paradise track. Third in the under 3 litre category of the Compact Tennis 300, the Graham Bailey Toyota Celica, the ex-Peter Williamson car. Bailey is getting out of the car and handing it over to his co-driver, Stephen Land. Land is also the team's mechanic, and this is his reward for winning the Hardy Ferodo 1000 from the mechanical viewpoint. Land is a very good sports sedan driver, and he's away in just 44 seconds. And this is what a driver looks like after he steps from his motor car with just half of the Compact Tennis 300 gone. Graham Bailey, the winner of the Hardy Ferodo 1000 in his class. What's it like out there in terms of the motor?
It's very, very hot, John. As you can see, I'm a little flustered. My mechanic always complains that he does all the hard work, so I've sent Steve Land out to do the next 40-odd laps, and then he might appreciate how hard I work too.
Had you expected the conditions to be as tough as they've been today?
No, it's very hot, and it's really getting through the tyres, although our Celica managed to hold our lap time very, very consistently, so we're very happy.
Graham, temperatures in the car, how does it affect a driver?
I've only been in the car a bit over an hour, so, you know, I haven't had a chance to dehydrate really. As you can see, I'm fairly wet, but the guys going all the way will really feel it today.
That's the car that he's talking of, that's holding second place in the 2 litre class behind the green and red Toyota Celica, the later model car, being driven by Michael Quinn, car 77. Michael Quinn doing a grand job in number 77, the Peter Williamson Toyota Celica. The lying third at this stage, signalling to his pits that everything's okay, although, like all the other cars virtually, the potential of having to stop early and change tyres is a very real one. But Quinn really doing it well, very smooth, very quick, and just with that nice sensitive feel that's letting him look after the rubber and keep the car out there. He's still, though, behind some of the V8s because O'Brien in 10 and Morris in 5, despite a pit stop, have been able to reclaim first and second place, leaving Quinn third. And the Dolomite coming into the pits. Oh, and up on its side there onto the straight. I can't see which car it is, but the yellow flag's waving, as you can see, to other competitors to warn them of obstruction on the outside of the track, just off the line, and it's fallen lightly over onto its side. A bit hard to work out what it is. Is it car 45? And that's Graham Means' Ford Escort. If it's car number 45, as Mike Quinn goes into the pits in the Celica number 77. So, another of the outright contenders and the 2 litre class leader into the pits now, Michael Quinn. One of the drivers that's planning to go the whole distance on his own. See the little catch tank there for any overflow fuel under the car to catch any. There's a pipe running down through the boot.
Car 55, Don Smith, leading the under 3 litre class, now storming out of the pits after 4 tyres, 2 churns of fuel, and his good friend Barry Seaton, who was to have driven the car today but gave it to Don as a reward for his help during the year, now puts the other tyres away, examines them. By the looks of them, not too much wear, or at least damage, on the tyres of the under 3 litre cars. The Capri handling the pace pretty well.
There's been a lot of race leaders today, 4 or 5 of them, but the man that's led most of the race, qualified fastest, and is back in the lead, is Charlie O'Brien here in car number 10. Been doing a great job, and at the end of 65 laps, holds first place from Bob Morris in second in car 5, Bob Morris's teammate, Wanless, third in car number 6. The Michael Quinn Celica 2 litre, fourth place outright, and obviously leading the 2 litre class, car number 77, in front of the 3-litre Capri, which is 5th outright and leading, obviously, the 3-litre class, being driven by Don Smith. And then in 6th place and second in the 2-litre class, Graham Bailey, Stephen Land in car number 51. Look at O'Brien through the S's there, looking after the car, but very quick, very tidy. Notice how he just had the brakes on as he turned into the corner. Let's have a look at it in slow motion. This is the style of a champion. Look at the inside wheels, how lightly they're touching the ground there. Minimum of wheel work is the essence of it all. Let the car stay settled. Don't toss it around. Don't be rough on it. Look at it coming around. Look at the front wheel off the ground, left front. Gives you an idea of how hard it's working. It's still airborne, three-wheeling. Then it settles down, but nice attitude, pointing in the right direction. The car's flat, tail's coming round. And that just shows you the work that goes in, then brakes. And he even had the brakes on as he turned into the corner. And here we see him again live. And that's why he's doing it so well. The leader at the end of lap 67, but down in the pits, a man not so lucky, Tony Poulos, who is driving Alfa Romeo number 49.
Tony Poulos, what caused the crash?
Oh, it was driver error. There's no question about that. I just went a little bit too wide in the corner. Such a tremendous amount of rubber just on the outside of the corner that the moment the back of the car wants to move away from you, it's very difficult to straighten them up.
You're okay yourself?
And yeah, fit as a fiddle, no worries. Just pride's hurt, I guess.
Most people said it was the best prepared motor car at the meeting. It was also its swan song. It was due to retire after today. It must disappoint you.
Yeah, it certainly does. Unfortunately, that marvellous little motor car, the Alfa, and it'll be about the only motor car I'd prefer to race, that's for sure. I put about 10,000 hours, I suppose, work into the thing, I'd reckon, just at a guess. But you've got to do that, of course, to run in a meeting like this. The pace is absolutely red hot, and I guess I just tried a little bit too hard. Never mind.
Real trouble for Don Smith, 5th place outright, class leader of the 3-litre class in car number 55. He's blown a tyre, he's shredding not only the tyre, but the left-hand wheel as he limps back to the pits, hopeful that he doesn't destroy the differential in the car before he gets back. The car unbelievably hard to drive and to steer with that rear tyre dragging so much, and he's got to cross over from the left-hand side of the track where he is now, sneak over to the inside. He's done that as they come out of the S's. He's on the grass, as you can see, and now has just this last corner and the run down halfway down the straight to get back to the pits. Lying 5th outright at the end of 75 laps and the 3-litre class leader. And it gives you an idea of the risk the outright 5-litre V8 cars are running by not having come in for a second pit stop at this stage to replace tyres. And that, of course, concerns Charlie O'Brien lying first in car 10, Bob Morris running second in car 5, and Ron Wanless running third in car 6. They all could have this happen to them. As Smith at least goes to the pits in Barry Seaton's car, obviously going to slip back behind Graham Bailey, the next car behind him in 51, the 2-litre Celica. Car 32, the Stephen Masterton Capri that ran into trouble early but is back into a respectable place, and behind him Ross Burbridge RX3 Mazda number 60.
After a very successful stop only a short time ago to change all 4 tyres, Don Smith is back in the pits. Just look at the left rear wheel. It's totally torn to pieces. The tyre itself is pretty much intact, but it's the rim that's collapsed, and he's driven all the way around the circuit like that. Now, that's not going to do the rear suspension, the rear brakes, or indeed the axle any good at all. So even if he gets back out into the race, the chances of the car maintaining its position are pretty slim. By the looks of it, he's also had a slight bingle around that guard, which would probably indicate the state of the rim. There it is there, totally buckled, smoke still coming off it. He's driven all the way back like that.
Gary Wilmington in trouble in the Big Falcon number 8, spinning, bouncing over the curbing, and then coming to rest peacefully out there in the grass, and that's why he spun. And again, a demonstration of the tremendous stress on tyres and mechanical components, and Wilmington walking away realising there's nothing more that can be done. Let's have a look at it, slow motion. Up on the curbing, lucky it just didn't dig in somewhere and trip over the driver, a passenger in the car at this stage. It's the right rear tyre that's gone. And then, with Wilmington starting to think that perhaps it's all going to come to rest without any further drama, any rollover or hitting anything, he just went onto the grass there. There's the man, there's the reason for the problem. Stephen Land taking over from Graham Bailey in car 51. The two of them putting in a good performance to be holding second place in the 2-litre class in this older ex-Peter Williamson Toyota Celica. In front of them, the class leader is 77, Mike Quinn. And this is the car that the Chickadee chicken car that we're looking at that won the class at Bathurst after troubles struck car number 77. A quite remarkable effort by Stephen Masterton in this V6 Capri number 32. He was one of the earlier 3-litre cars to run into a problem, made his pit stop, went back out, and since there has had no further problems and has worked away very steadily, quickly and easily on the car, so that he was a little while ago 6th. He then picked up Graham Bailey in car 51 to be 5th, and now car 77, the 2-litre class leader, the Mike Quinn Toyota Celica, is in trouble, so that Masterton in 32 is 4th outright. And it's Charlie O'Brien that slotted himself back in and now is running as easily and as smoothly as he can towards the finish, because he knows the enormous danger of in any way heating or overworking his tyres on any part of the circuit here. He just must brush the brakes and bring the car down under anchors, not get it sliding in corners, not upset it in corners, keep it smooth and keep the gap between himself as he goes under the Dunlop Bridge. This very fast sweeping corner would be the second fastest on any Australian race circuit. Only the fast kink at Lakeside would be quicker. Out of that tight Winfield corner, let's have a look here as he clips the edge. Looks a bit dramatic as a bit of dust comes up, but he's just taking a very tight inside line, very wisely actually, as he this was the run onto Dunlop Bridge. This is the quick corner that we're talking about, down the straight up to around over 200 kilometers an hour. Bit of a dab of the brakes into there at about 190k. That's fast. Scrubbing off speed, the car's sliding sideways all the way under there, and you'll see him just clip the inside here as he tries even harder than normal to straight line the corner. You just see him pick up the dust on the inside, and that's because he's making a particular effort to keep as much load as possible off the tyres. Commodore, we're looking at Ron Wanless's car number 6, the teammate of Bob Morris, who's in second place, Wanless running third. But there's the race leader now. 95 laps the race distance, 94 completed, into the back section of the circuit for the last time. Accelerating out of Goodyear corner up towards, that's down the back straight on the way to Asander. The fast top gear left-hand corner, the caution flag out there. There's quite a few ailing motor cars around the track. The 25-year-old Charlie O'Brien, who's very dedicated to his racing. He's a big build of a man, tall and solidly built, has dieted to lose weight because his great ambition in motor racing is to race a single-seater. He regards this as just a step forward in his career. And as he goes under the Qantas Hill, jubilant there, with Steve Masterton in behind him in car 32. And onto the straight he comes. Well, he thinks he's taken the checkered flag already as he comes slowly down to the finishing line. So that the slowing down lap for Charlie O'Brien, jubilant at having won for the second year in a row the Surfers Paradise final round of the Championship of Makes. Down he goes to the start-finish line. And a well-run race indeed by the Queenslander. Bob Morris will take second place in car 5, Commodore. Third place, Ron Wanless, Commodore, number 6. Fourth place, Graham Bailey, Toyota Celica, number 51. There's Wanless. In third place, Bailey in the white Toyota Celica again wins the 2-litre class in the light of the Peter Williamson team car not finishing. Bad luck for Mike Quinn. Masterton comes up to take 5th and first place in the 3-litre class. 6th outright, the Ross Burbridge Mazda RX-3.
Well, Charlie, winner of the race for the second year in a row. Very tough race, Charlie.
It was, Peter. It was quite a tough one, tough as I've had for a while. I didn't think the tyres were going to go through after coming in after about 30 laps, but once the rubber got down on the circuit and sort of slowed up a bit, I was able to sort of set a pace to keep Bob about 6 seconds behind and come home to the finish. But it's quite a hard race, the hardest I've had for a while.
How much of a worry was it, the tyre wear over the last 10 or so laps?
Well, it was critical because I could feel the front tyre sort of balling up and it was starting to slide pretty well in the front. So I was sort of chucking the car pretty well sideways to use the rear tyre because it had plenty of meat on. But,
were you worried when you came in so early that you would have to change again before the end of the race?
Well, they had the board out with another 30 laps to go to pull me in again, 30 laps from the finish. And when they handed the board out, I just said, no, I'm not coming in. Let's keep on going until the finish and see how we go to get there.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you.